Well, hey, y'all. I'll wait just a minute or so for you all to come in. I'm excited today about our time together. I hope that you all are as well. And for those of you who are on the various platforms, if it is your first time joining me for Tuesday Leadership Tips with Lita, I want to welcome you. Welcome to this platform. Welcome to this time of sharing, learning together, leading together, growing together. Thank you for joining me today for TLT with Lita. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, listen, y'all, full disclosure. Last couple of times I had two screens going. Today we're welcoming in the YouTube family. So we're all here together today. So I'm excited and I'm ready for our time together today. So again, come on in, y'all. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome to TLT with Lita. I hope that you all are having a great day today. If you're on now, go ahead and tell me how you're doing. Give me a thumbs up if all is well. Give me a thumbs down if you're struggling, if you're working through some things. Tell me how you're doing. All right. So listen, I was trying to see some of these screens are different. Oh, you put it that way. But come on in, y'all. Welcome to TLT with Lita. Again, I hope you're having an amazing day. If you haven't yet, tell me how you're doing. Give me a thumbs up if all is well. Give me a thumbs down if you're struggling or if you're working through something. Today's going to be a little bit different than any of the other TLT with leaders have been. It's going to be a little different because it's going to be let me say it's going to be a little bit vulnerable for me, probably more than you all, but I want to share something that I think is relevant to our leadership tip that we're going to discuss today. So I want to be authentic. I want to be real before you, and I want you all um, to really grab hold to this thing of leadership being something that's not perfection, but it is necessary. And it is something that all of us have to do, even if we're just leading ourselves. So, again, welcome to TLT with Lita. Today's leadership tip is this: learn to lead yourself, love yourself, and navigate loss. The leadership tip again is learn to lead yourself, love yourself, and navigate loss. Listen to me, y'all. Leadership is a wonderful thing, I think, for anyone to do, for anyone to grab hold to learn this skill. I think it's wonderful. I also want you to understand that it's not just about guiding others. It starts with leading yourself well, prioritizing self care, and navigating personal challenges like loss and setbacks. So today, what I want to do is kind of dive deep a little bit into the real work of leadership, and that real work is the inner work. That inner work is so important because whatever you have going on inside is what's going to show up outside. I said, whatever you have going on inside, it's going to eventually show up outside. So I want to dive into that real work of leadership, which is that inner work. As I was saying before, leadership isn't just about, success. It's not just about strategy, although those are wonderful. That's what we want. We want to have a strategy. We want to have success. But at times, and probably more often than it's said, we need to be able to be resilient. So it's also about resilience. It's also about taking that time to take care of you. So let me ask you this question. What happens when you, as a leader, and you're struggling? What happens when you're struggling? What happens when you are struggling? When you, as a leader, are really struggling with something, and sometimes it's nobody else who knows about your struggle but you. So, how do you show up for others when you yourself are battling personal loss? You're battling burnout, you're battling self doubt. How do you show up for others? That's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about this because it's important, because all of us will go through it at one point or another in our lives, in our tenure of leadership. We'll go through it. So, do this for me. Drop a heart in the chat if you have ever had to lead while you were dealing with personal struggles. Drop a heart in the chat for me if you've ever had to deal with leading while you're going through a personal struggle. And I'm going to share with you in just a little bit how I had to go through a personal struggle. And a lot of times, when we as leaders are going through personal struggles, a lot of times we don't say anything to anyone, especially those that we are leading. We don't say anything right away. We don't mention it at all. We just keep showing up and we keep leading. And I want to share because it's after the fact, in fact, years after the fact. I want to share it because it's very real that sometimes you go through personal struggles. Some of you who have been following me, you know that last year around September, one of my older brothers passed away. And that's not what I'm going to share. It's something else that happened that took me years, really took me at least a couple of years to kind of heal from it and get past it. But I had to learn how to lead myself, love myself, and navigate the loss. So I want to talk to you just for a few moments about these three pillars of inner leadership, because we're talking about doing the real work of leadership, which is that inner work. And I want to just talk to you just for a few moments about these three pillars of leadership, of inner leadership. And the first one being self leadership. I think I had shared it before that there are so many books out there about self-leadership and how it starts with leading yourself before you can lead other people. Leading yourself before leading others is pretty important, because if you can't lead yourself well, how do you think it's going to look or it's going to turn out when you start leading others? So, great leadership, it starts with self-discipline. It starts with emotional awareness, and it starts with intentional growth, because sometimes we have things going on personally that affect how we lead professionally. They affect how we engage the ones that we lead, those that may even be our peers and our colleagues. It has a tremendous effect um, going on when you have personal emotional things going on. I believe it's Dr. Darius Daniels. He said this before. He said, I'm paraphrasing. He said, however you're doing emotionally, it's going to affect every other area of your life. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect everything. And so it's important that you have that self leadership. Leaders, we have to own our energy. We have to own our mindset. We have to own our habits. We have to do all of this as effectively as we can as we begin to lead other people. No one else is responsible for our mindset. It's up to us to make sure that we have the right mindset, make sure that we're doing the right things, we have the right habits, make sure that we are owning our energy. And sometimes that means we have to set up boundaries so that um, certain things don't steal the energy that we need to keep going. So sometimes we have to do check-ins. We got to do a self check-in and ask yourself, am I leading from a place of clarity or from chaos? Sometimes you have to ask yourself, and I've asked myself after the loss that I'm going to share with you in a little while, that I had to ask myself, am I leading from a place of pain or from a healed place? Because sometimes we can be going through pain and going through all kinds of adversity and trials, and we can be leading from a place of pain, rejection, being wounded, these different things going on. So that self leadership is important. The second pillar is self love. You got to learn to prioritize yourself without feeling guilty about it. That was one of the harder things that I had to do. I had to learn how to prioritize me and not feel bad about it. You can't pour from an empty cup. Many leaders struggle with giving themselves grace. Sometimes you just need to give yourself some grace. It's okay if you step away to get filled back up again. And I'm one of those people. I'm like, I think like a glass half full, not half empty. But the bottom line is, if it's half full, it's still half of it that needs to be filled. And so it's important to prioritize yourself and not feel guilty about it. I remember times in the military when I would take leave, and those of you who may be prior service or may have been in the military before, you understand that at that time they would give 30 days leave per year. And sometimes when you're working so much, you don't get a chance to take leave throughout the year. So you take like the whole 30 days before that year is up or after a deployment or whatever. And sometimes I used to feel bad about leaving for a whole month, but I needed to prioritize me over what I was doing or over the job or over whatever it was and not feel bad about it. So understand this, leaders. Self care is not selfish, it's actually wise, and it's a leadership necessity. You have to take time for self care. It's not selfish. So I want you to as you're listening to what I'm saying, or if you're jotting down notes, whatever you may be doing, write the thoughts that are coming to you as I'm speaking to you now, because you need to find a way that you can practice self love as a leader. How can you show yourself some love? and figure out how to do that because you need that. And that third pillar of the inner leadership is leading through loss. Leading through loss. We got to learn as leaders to stay resilient even in the hard times. So whether it's a personal loss, a failure, or a setback, we as leaders still have to show up. We don't get to just quit. We still have to show up. And we have to understand as leaders that when we take time to grieve, whatever the loss is, whatever the setback is, grief does not mean that you stop leading, but it does mean that you lead differently. You lead differently, um, oftentimes after a major setback, especially if it was personal. It's one, like I said, it's one thing to deal with the setbacks and the losses that happen with business. But when you have a personal setback, grief is in order, and it may mean that you come back and you lead differently. Why? Because you learned, you healed, and now you can go forward better than you were before. So communicate your struggles. I will tell anybody, communicate your struggles with people you trust, not with everybody. Let me be clear. Not with anybody and everybody, but people that you trust, trusted peers, trusted spaces where you have people who will maintain your privacy, and you set those realistic boundaries. But you need somewhere where you can talk to somebody and be able to communicate your struggles safely. Safely. So let me share the setback, or I would call this is not just a setback. It was a loss for me. It happened in 2000, just before COVID. Those of you who don't know, I was at one time married. I was married for 15 years, and my former spouse decided that he wanted to engage in uh, some things that were not a part of our marriage. And he decided that he wanted to go and be with someone else. And long story short, we ended up divorcing in 2000. And it was a huge loss, especially after you have given 15 years into something that you entered into for life. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm fiercely loyal. When I put myself into something, I'm all in. And it was unexpected. I was caught completely off guard. I was wounded. I was devastated. And I want to tell you this, that in all of that, I still had to lead myself. I had to learn to love myself all over again, because the first thing that happened to me as it related to emotionally is I began to blame myself. And I'm telling you, leaders, even when you have setbacks in business and things don't go the way that you want them to go, and you go through certain things, sometimes you'll start blaming yourself. And when it's all said and done, there are some things that are just out of your control. You can't worry about the things that you can't control. And even the things that you can control, you can't worry about that either. So, long story short, We ended up getting a divorce. It was a major setback, and I'll tell any of you, if you've gone through something that's personally, very damaging and hurtful and painful and all of that, all the things, I will tell anybody, if you need counseling, get counseling. If you need therapy, get therapy, but get what you need so that you can get back up. Because this is the thing, right? Sometimes life happens. Sometimes life goes the complete opposite of what we really want it to do, but it doesn't mean it's the end. As I look back hindsight, I'm better for it. I'm better as a person. I learned a lesson in it. I taught the person unconditional love, but listen to me. The lesson they taught me was self love. As much as I may have wanted my marriage not to end, it did, but it wasn't the end of me. And I'm telling you today that when you have major setbacks, when you go through things that are personal, whether they're professional, however they come, you can get through it. If you can learn to lead yourself, love yourself, and navigate your setbacks, you'll make a comeback that people won't believe. Oh, I wish I could say that again. If you can learn to do that, you can make a comeback, but you got to learn to do it as a leader, no matter what challenges you face, no matter what the setbacks are, no matter what the personal loss is, you can get back up from it and you can be better. You can come out better. You will be better and you'll lead better. That's just the truth. So tell me, of the 3 pillars that I talked about, the self-leadership, the self-love, or the, leading through loss, which one of these do you struggle with the most? Put it in the chat for me. Which one do you struggle with the most? Self-leadership, self-love, or leading through loss? Which one? I tell you, the one I struggled with the most was the lesson I learned, self-love. If you can love yourself, you'll love people better. You'll be better. All right. So listen, y'all. Y'all know I like to give y'all something. Um, so I want to give you how you can stay strong while you're leading through challenges. I want to give you 4 things of how you can stay strong while you're leading through your challenges. Number 1, acknowledge your struggles. Don't suppress them. Acknowledge them. Listen, just because you don't acknowledge it doesn't make it go away. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it does not exist just because you don't acknowledge it. So acknowledge your struggles. Don't suppress them. You can't lead effectively when you are running on empty. You can't lead effectively that way. So acknowledge it. Like I said, you know who to acknowledge to. Acknowledge to trusted people. Acknowledge to people that's going to encourage you and that's going to help you as you're going through your struggles. No, the second thing you do is set boundaries and protect your energy. Set boundaries. Say no. Listen to me very carefully. Say no to what drains you and say yes to what restores you. Because sometimes there are things, things and people that drain you. And you got to learn how to say no to what drains you. Say yes to what restores you, especially when you are trying to get through a challenging time in your life, especially when you're going through a setback, you're going through a painful experience. You got to set those boundaries, protect your energy because you don't need to be fighting what you could have avoided. You don't need to be fighting when you're already fighting. The third thing is find your support system. You all have heard me talk about it before. You need a support system. Every leader needs a mentor, a peer, a safe space. And if you're a coach, every coach needs a coach. You need a place to process challenges. So find that support system, that trusted group of people that you can get support from. Listen, you should be able to get support from them, not you going to them. And every time you go to them, it turns to you supporting them because you're not getting the support you need. Find that support system. And the fourth and last thing is practice grace, not perfection. Give yourself some grace. The better leaders, and if you want to be a better leader, lead with humility, with authenticity and self-compassion. Sometimes you're going to miss it, you're going to mess up, sometimes things are not going to go the way you want them to go, but you've got to practice grace, not perfection. Nothing is getting perfected, y'all, until Jesus returns. We are striving to perfection, but we gotta practice grace. Lead with humility. Be authentic. I think that whenever we are not authentic, I believe that that takes away from the impact that you make and the inspiration that you can give as a leader. You got to have that self-compassion. Give yourself some grace and give those that you lead some too. All right, y'all. So listen, when it's all said and done, you have to lead yourself. You've got to learn to love yourself. And you got to learn how to navigate through difficulties, through loss, through challenges. When you learn to do that, you come out better. I want to leave you with this final thought before we close out this TLT with Lita. And it's this: if you want to be a better leader, you're not just leading teams. Remember, they lead themselves. Whenever you're a better leader, you're going to lead not just you're going to lead them better with wisdom, self-care, and resilience. Prioritize your inner leadership, and your outer leadership will thrive. Prioritize your inner leadership, and your outer leadership will thrive. So do me a favor. I want you to write down something. If you got to put it in your phone, put a note in your phone, put something that you're going to do, that you're going to implement to lead yourself better. One thing. Then do one thing that you're going to do to love yourself better. And then if you are going through a loss or going through a setback or a challenge, think of one thing, put it down in writing, that you are going to do to navigate through that challenge. And listen, if you have an accountability partner, I want you to send that to them so they can hold you accountable. If you don't have an accountability partner, you can message it to me and I'll do my best to help you remain accountable to the three things that you're going to do. One, to lead yourself, one, to love yourself, and one, to navigate through a challenge or difficulty or whatever it is that you may be going through at the time. And listen, I want you to let me know, DM me your commitment and let me know how it goes. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me today for TLT with Lita. Hey, tag somebody and tell them to join us next Tuesday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern. I look forward to seeing y'all then. All right, y'all. Peace.